interested in Emily that she had turned him down. When questioned, though, David claimed that his feelings for Emily were purely platonic. They chatted a lot at work, yes, but that was it. People had seen him talking to her on the night of her disappearance because he had gone out of his way to wish her all the best, he said. Unlike a lot of the other staff members, he wasn't a student at Kenyon College, so he knew this might be the last time he would see Emily. David also said that he left the restaurant early that night. He was gone by 11 because he had tickets to a concert. Authorities looked into this, and David's alibi checked out. The situation with Dave Yoakum, on the other hand, was a lot more unsettling. Apparently, he had actually been fired from Pirates Cove for repeatedly harassing his female colleagues. According to several members of staff, Dave was the kind of guy who just couldn't take a hint no matter how many times he was told somebody wasn't interested in him. On top of this, he apparently made non-stop crude and suggestive remarks that irritated everyone. A number of people said that Dave had finally been fired after making unwanted advances that were so creepy, one of the cooks, Greg McKnight, had to step in. Police looked further into Dave Yoakum, though no one had actually seen him at Pirates Cove on the night Emily went missing. Detectives theorized that it was possible that he had staked out the restaurant and waited for the 20-year-old to leave. However, he also had an alibi that seemed to check out. Unfortunately, after this, the investigation really started to stall. There was no real evidence to speak of, and in the minds of detectives, they were being pulled in two equally plausible directions in terms of their theories of the case. In the meantime, opinions were also split on the campus of Kenyon College. Like some members of the investigative team, many couldn't and didn't want to believe that Emily was the victim of a crime. In the absence of concrete information, rumors swirled everywhere. Some said that she couldn't hack it at school and had jumped in her car and headed home. Others speculated that she ran off to start a new life. A few said that they believed she checked herself into a mental institution. Still, the longer this went on, the harder it was to believe that there was an innocent explanation for Emily's disappearance. As days turned into weeks, a sense of fear gripped the Kenyon College campus, which by now was littered with missing persons flyers for Emily. School officials advised that students travel everywhere in pairs and advertised that school security could be called to provide escorts across campus after dark. While this was all very unsettling, Emily's friends and fellow students at Kenyon were far from the only ones stuck in this constant state of dread. Tom, Cynthia, and the rest of the 20-year-old's family were living in a constant nightmare. They couldn't eat, they couldn't sleep, and they certainly couldn't go on with daily life. In fact, even taking part in the search effort posed an impossible dilemma. What happened if Emily called them at their home in New York and they weren't there to pick up the phone? This unbearable situation would last for more than 5 weeks until finally authorities got a break. Even then, it came from the most unexpected place. It was a massive coincidence that would end up blowing the case wide open.
Megérkezett az F&F legújabb kollekciója Tesco-ba. Teremtsd meg az otthon hangulatát. Kártyáddal az F&F pohárkészlet csak 1999 forint, a rájó étkészlet pedig csak 13.990 forint. F&F Home, kizárólag a Tesco-ban.
Hajrá, Zsömi! Irány a szabadba! A Vectra 3D véd a külső élősködőktől. Távol tartja a szúnyogokat, elpusztítja a kullancsokat, és kiiktatja a bolhákat. Egy doboz, 3 hónap védelem szúnyogok, kullancsok, bolhák és legyek ellen. A Vectra 3D keresd állatorvosoknál, állatpatikában és online.
On October 11th, 2000, so nearly a month before Emily Murray went missing, a man named Ronald Hopkins was driving his truck on the outskirts of the community of Ray in Vinton County, Ohio. He was traveling down Clark Road when suddenly he was struck by another vehicle. At first, the crash didn't seem like that big of a deal. Ronald wasn't hurt, and he immediately recognized the man behind the wheel of the other vehicle as one of his neighbors. The damage also wasn't as bad as it could have been. A lot of it was to the car that the other man had been driving. In fact, The force of the collision had popped open the man's trunk. However, all of this quickly changed when another neighbor, James Clary, stopped at the scene to offer some help. While walking around the crash site, James noticed the open trunk of the car. Inside were several guns, ones that he recognized had just been stolen from his house in a recent break-in. The police were called, and the driver of the car was arrested. Fast forward nearly 2 months later to December 9th, 2000, when a pair of deputies were sent out to serve court papers informing the driver from the October crash that he had been indicted on charges of complicity to commit burglary and receiving stolen property. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, when the deputies arrived at this man's address, which was listed as a trailer on a piece of land just off of Clark Road, they were initially not very hopeful. The secluded wooded property did not look like it had been cared for in some time. In fact, there was junk scattered all over, as well as several vehicles in varying states of disrepair. It was not surprising, therefore, when knocks at the trailer door went unanswered. The officers were just getting ready to leave when they noticed something that was kind of tucked behind the trailer. It was another vehicle. However, this one was not like the others on the property. For one thing, it looked relatively new. For another, it had New York license plates on it. The vehicle was a green Subaru Outback station wagon. The vehicle stuck out so much that the Vinton County deputies decided to run the plates. They came back as belonging to a missing woman, 20-year-old Emily Murray. When Vinton County authorities relayed this information to the BCI and to detectives with the Knox County Sheriff's Office, this wasn't the only surprise, though. What also immediately caught their attention was who owned that trailer property where Emily's car had been found. It was the cook at Pirates Cove, 24-year-old Greg McKnight. Understandably, this was a bombshell revelation on its own. However, things would only speed up from here. After learning that it was Emily's car on Greg's property, police obtained a search warrant for the trailer there. An officer entered through a window, and upon climbing in, began clearing the residence. As soon as he did, he was hit with an unmistakable and stomach-churning odor. When more investigators were let inside, it wasn't long before more disturbing discoveries were made. There was dried blood in various places in the trailer, including one spot where it had clearly pooled in the living room. Ominously, there were also smears in the blood that looked like drag marks. Police learned why when they headed into one of the trailer's bedrooms, where it was obvious that that strong odor they had smelled before was emanating from. Tragically, rolled up in a rug inside the room was the body of Emily Murray. An autopsy would reveal that she had died from a single contact gunshot wound to the right side of her head. Understandably, the news of Emily's death, after 36 excruciating days, was an unfathomable blow to her family. It also stunned her friends, classmates, co-workers, and the community at large. Regardless of the rumors, everyone had hoped that she would be found alive and well. In the following days, grief and heartbreak quickly rippled out in all directions. Nearly 1,000 people showed up to attend a memorial for the 20-year-old in Shaker Heights, despite a snowstorm. Hundreds more attended a ceremony on the campus of Kenyon College a month later, where a tree was planted in Emily's honor. After the discovery of Emily's body, Greg McKnight was immediately brought in for questioning. To say that he was unhelpful would be a serious understatement. He gave non-committal and one-word answers to almost every question he was asked. And as soon as he was confronted with what detectives knew, he stopped talking altogether and asked for an attorney.
You're living over at West St. Patrick. Did you have any other property at any point? Yes. Where was that? What kind of structure down there? Trap. When did you say the last time that you were down there? Down there before. Fourth of December. Okay. Emily disappeared 3rd, November. Right, right. Would there be any way that she would know where the, I mean, she never followed you down there, they never took her down there. Regan, I don't think you're being 100% truthful. We've been down to the property. Okay. Greg, we've got BCI at the property right now. You know what BCI is? Okay, it's the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation. Okay, they're from the Attorney General's office and they're crime scenes. Very good at what they do.
Fuck.
I don't know if they've got an idea or what, but they've gotta have an accent.
Fortunately, this didn't really matter. Craig was already wanted in connection with that burglary case. He was able to be held even before charges were brought in the Emily Murray case. In the meantime, detectives and BCI agents went into overdrive, scouring the trailer property for further clues. In addition to the large amount of blood evidence in the trailer, DNA from which would later be matched to Emily, authorities soon found other vital clues. There was a hole in the subfloor of the trailer near the largest pool of blood in the living room, and a spent shell casing was found nearby. It was theorized that this was from the gunshot that had killed Emily. To the frustration of investigators, the actual bullet could not be located despite extensive searches of the ground underneath the trailer, though they were able to find several other rounds that had been fired into trees on the property, presumably as target practice. These bullets were a match to the spent shell casing found in the trailer, as well as additional shell casings found in the residence. It was also determined that this caliber of round was consistent with the fatal injuries Emily had suffered. Unfortunately, as devastating as all this already was, it wasn't the end just yet. You see, there was still one final, awful secret left to uncover. Several days into the search at Greg McKnight's trailer, detectives and agents with the BCI released another surprise announcement in connection with the Emily Murray case. They had now discovered the remains of a second person on the property. While sources we came across contradicted each other about exactly how the discovery was made, the most frequently cited version of events goes like this. So, after finding Emily's body in the trailer and processing that scene, investigators began to spread out on the property, which was about 2 acres in size, and look for additional clues. Specifically, they were hoping to find a murder weapon and began to search for any spot that looked like it might be a good hiding place. Eventually, they stumbled across a concrete water cistern that was partially buried in the ground. When they brought in an excavator to scoop out the water, the second bucket came back containing what were clearly human bones. Over the next 6 days, more bones and teeth would be found in the cistern, as well as in a root cellar and in garbage bags that were scattered on the property. Also in these bags were tennis shoes, overalls, and a pair of men's boxer shorts. These, as well as the remains, showed signs of having been partially burned. Though the state of these remains made them much more challenging to identify than Emily's, soon authorities caught another lucky break when they learned about a missing 20-year-old man named Gregory Julius. Gregory had been reported missing about 6 months earlier from the nearby city of Chillicothe. Investigators reached back out to the woman who made that Gregory's girlfriend, Dana Bostic. She confirmed that the last time she had seen her boyfriend was on May 12th, when he went out to attend an Ohio State University block party with a friend. That friend was Greg McKnight. Dana told police that 2 days later, Greg McKnight came over saying that he had no idea where Gregory was. He claimed that he went off with some different friends at the last second in Cincinnati. Dana said she felt weird about this story at the time because Greg couldn't seem to answer any of the questions about where they had gone or what they had been doing on the night of May 12th. He also claimed that he didn't know which friend Gregory was with. First, she thought maybe Gregory had left her, but when he never returned to grab any of his belongings or even his ID, she started to think that something was wrong. She reported him missing in June. When Dana was shown articles of the bloody clothing that had been found on Greg McKnight's property, she she identified them as the same clothes that Gregory had been wearing on the last day that he was seen alive. On top of the already incriminating evidence found against Greg McKnight. By this point, investigators had also learned that this was far from the only time he'd been in trouble with the law. In 1992, at the age of 15, he had been convicted of murder for killing a Columbus man during the middle of a robbery. Once again, sources contradict each other here, but he was released either 5 or 6 years later after serving time at the Circleville Youth Center. With authorities realizing that they were arguably dealing with a serial killer, they decided to move ahead with charges against Greg McKnight for the murders of both Emily Murray and Gregory Julius. Prosecutors decided that they were going to try and seek the death penalty. Now, this decision was a controversial one, though not for the reason you might expect. Initially, the judge in the case decided that Vinton County could not afford to try a death penalty case. He argued that the county, which was the poorest and least populated in the state, did not have the financial resources to pay the cost of Greg McKnight's defense, as well as the many appeals that would almost certainly follow. However, after public outrage and a higher court ruling, the judge ended up overturning his own decision. When the trial finally began in 2002, the prosecution had a lot of witnesses and evidence on their side. They argued that Greg had secretly harbored feelings for Emily Murray, and that when he found out she was leaving Pirates Cove, he knew her last shift would be his last opportunity to act on it. After closing up the restaurant, he followed Emily outside and asked her for a ride. Almost everyone who police spoke with stated that Emily would have thought nothing of this, and almost certainly would have agreed. Prosecutors alleged that Greg had taken advantage of this and had kidnapped Emily. He couldn't take her to the place where he lived in Gambier because his wife was there. So instead, he drove her to his second property, that secluded trailer 100 miles away in Lincoln County. Once there, when it became clear that Emily wasn't going to cooperate, Greg shot and killed her. The case with Gregory Julius was understandably more difficult because there were fewer witnesses to what happened. Luckily, though, by this time, investigators had uncovered additional evidence. Specifically, police had been able to track down a red Mazda that Greg McKnight had been driving around the time of Gregory's disappearance, one which he had sold almost immediately afterwards. Though the back seat of the vehicle had been replaced, analysis of the car uncovered blood in the carpet underneath. It was a DNA match to Gregory Julius. As for the reason Greg McKnight had killed Gregory, prosecutors said that they couldn't say for sure. From what they had uncovered, though, it seemed to be entirely trivial, an argument either about a girl or drugs, they urged. Clearly aware that they were up against a mountain of evidence, Greg's defense team focused a lot of their attention on attacking Emily's character. According to those that knew her, they did this by zeroing in on her mental health issues, as well as twisting facts about her life to make it look like she might be responsible for her own death. They made Emily out to be a wild child, one with tattoos and a love for staying out all night and partying. As previously mentioned, though, the only time Emily stayed out all night was to study for school, and her one tattoo was a Holy Spirit dove that she had gotten as a testament to her faith. Understandably, listening to this was agony for Tom and Cynthia. Tom would later go on to say in an interview, quote, "I was in a primal rage at the trial, not at McKnight, but at his lawyers, who took everything sweet and honest Emily ever did and tried to make it sound sordid. I wouldn't be surprised if there are marks in the bench where I dug my fingers in. The things they said about Emily were pointless, irrelevant, and cruel. I had to sit in the same room as they vilified her, and I couldn't do anything because I did not want to cause a mistrial." Still, as heartbreaking and painful as all of this was, Tom and Cynthia sat through every minute of that jury sided with the prosecution. Greg McKnight was convicted of aggravated murder for the killing of Emily and first-degree murder for killing Gregory, as well as kidnapping and aggravated robbery. Even after everything they had been through, when it came down to it, Emily's family still stuck to their principles. Tom and Cynthia had always been against the death penalty, and they knew that their daughter felt particularly strong about it. As a result, they went before the judge at Greg McKnight's sentencing, asking that his life be spared. They also issued a statement that read in part, quote, Emily would regard it as a tragedy and an abomination if another human being were put to death in her name. Despite Tom and Cynthia's plea, the judge decided to sentence Greg McKnight to death anyway. Ultimately, though, because of the way these cases work, it seems that the family may get their wish in the end. Like in many states, currently the future of the death penalty is uncertain in Ohio. At the time of this recording, it's been nearly 6 years since the last person was put to death. It's now been more than 20 years since Greg McKnight's conviction, and he currently remains on death row. I know some of you are probably tired of hearing me say this at the end of these cases, but I really felt awful for Emily Murray and her family while working on this video. There's not always a ton of information about the victims and the stories that we cover. Case in point, Gregory Julius. Honestly, I'm sad that there wasn't more that we could find to share with you about his life. In Emily's case, though, I feel like I really started to get a sense of who she was as I was reading about her life. There's no doubt in my mind that if she had been given the chance, she would have gone on to do great things. And that's what's truly gutting about all of this. In a similar vein, I really grew to admire Emily's family over the course of the research for this story. There's no right way or playbook for handling an unbelievable tragedy like this. But I honestly don't know if I could muster even an ounce of the resiliency, thoughtfulness, or strength that they showed throughout this devastating process. Particularly in the way that Tom and Cynthia refused to let this break them as a family. The couple knew that they were fighting against the odds. The death of a child under any circumstances has the potential to destroy marriages, relationships, and lives. But by all accounts, they dealt with their grief together as a family. According to reports, Tom and Cynthia celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary around the time of Greg McKnight's conviction, and said that they were doing whatever they could to keep each other and the rest of the family close. As for where the case stands today, as you might imagine, Greg McKnight is still trying to appeal. So far, the convictions have been upheld all the way to the state Supreme Court. However, as recently as 2020, motions were still being filed. In the latest of these appeals, McKnight is claiming that he didn't get a fair trial because of the all-white jury who convicted him. There are further allegations that racial slurs were repeatedly used by jury members during deliberations, which, if true, could lead to some potentially sticky situations for the state. While it's been almost 4 years since the latest publicly available update, I'm definitely not going to pretend I know what will happen next, especially considering what happened with last week's case that was reopened after 10 years without any real news. What I can promise you, though, is that if there are any major developments, we'll be sure to let you know. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who's made it this far in this video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, everyone, and take care. On the morning of August 10th, 2014, a man named Eric Wolf was violently shaken awake by his 10-year-old daughter Alexis. He'd been asleep on a reclining couch in the living room of his home in Jackson County, Michigan, having just finished an overnight shift at work a while earlier. Under normal circumstances, Eric might have been upset. After all, he hadn't planned on getting up for several hours. However, when he caught a glimpse of the look on his daughter's face, he could immediately tell that something was wrong. Alexis was frantic and said that she needed him to come upstairs right away. Though still dazed from lack of sleep, Eric followed Alexis up to the master bedroom. Once inside, it would take just seconds for him to pick up the phone and dial 911. When investigators arrived at the scene, they quickly discovered why. What they found there was truly the stuff of nightmares, the kind of scene that was enough to unsettle even the most hardened of detectives. However, as authorities would soon learn, this was far from the only thing about the case that they weren't prepared for. Just as they became convinced that they were on the right track, they were thrown by an unbelievable curveball, one that would not only shock them, but which would completely change the course of their investigation. From the time that she was a child, Frances Marie Craig was the kind of person who always seemed to leave a lasting positive impression on others. Known by Franny to those close to her, growing up she was social and made friends easily wherever she went. People were drawn to her kindness, her positive outlook on life, and her sense of humor, with friends saying that she was quick with a joke and always seemed to be smiling.